Mary Gillispie was a bus driver for her local school system in the late 1970s. She lived in a town in Ohio called Circleville, which is really known today for hosting its annual pumpkin show. Mary had a family of 2 children with her husband Ron. One night, Mary walks to her mailbox and grabs out a few pieces of mail. When she looks through her mail, she sees a letter with no return address. She opens the envelope and sees a letter that says, "Stay away from Massey. Don't lie when questioned about knowing him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know you have children. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified and everything will be over soon." The Massey the letter is referring to is Gordon Massey, the superintendent of the local school system at the time. If you remember, I said Mary was a school bus driver for the same school system. The letter was accusing her of having an affair with the superintendent. Even though she said the accusations weren't true, she decided to keep quiet about the whole situation. A week later, Mary gets another letter from the same sender. It read, "I know everything. Call the sheriff. He can't watch you forever. Route 3, Circleville, Ohio, 62917. Bus number 4747301. I shall keep ringing. Again, this is no joke either. Meet him and ride in his car so I can make headlines and get this over with. Stay away from him noon as well as night." Mary claimed that she was not having an affair with Gordon Massey and decided to keep the letters a secret from everyone. But that secret didn't last for long. Mary's husband Ron gets a letter from the mysterious writer explaining to him that his wife was having an affair with the superintendent. The writer eventually demands that Ron take action and tell the school board about the affair. One letter read, "You have had 2 weeks and done nothing. You are a pig defender. You also are a pig. Make her admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, I will broadcast it on CBS, posters, signs, billboards, until the truth comes out." I personally think that the person is avoiding using punctuation correctly on purpose to seem like they're less educated than they are. But actually, in my opinion, it kind of makes them look more dumb than they would have looked if they just used correct punctuation, because it seems like they're trying too hard to be someone they're not. I should say that all of these letters weren't that straightforward. Some have a lot of rambling about meaningless things, and some have a lot of cussing and disgusting accusations. As it turns out, the Gillespies weren't the only ones getting sweet messages in the mail. Letters were being sent directly to the school board, stores in town, and even the superintendent himself. Letters poured in week after week, sometimes even every day. So at this point, Circleville has a potential stalker who is writing letters detailing specifics about the recipients, letting them know that they're being watched. Somehow, it gets worse. Signs begin to be placed along Mary's bus route. These signs contain threats, talk about her alleged affair with the superintendent, and say gross things about her and her family. Her husband Ron is nice enough to go out in the morning and pick up the signs along the road so that she doesn't have to see them. So this has all become way too much so quickly. In only a few months, things have escalated from single letters to letters every day across town and signs posted in public. They'd had enough. Mary tells Ron about the only person that she could think of that would be writing these letters. She had a coworker named David that she had been friends with. He made a pass at her and she declined to move their relationship past a platonic friendship. The couple visits with Ron's sister, Karen, and her husband, Paul Freshour. Karen and Paul console them and try to do the best thing they can think of. They each write letters to Mary's coworker, letting him know that they've identified him as the person writing the letters. For a while, the letters stop. Then they continue and nothing changes. Mary gets out of town with her friends to go on a trip from good old Ohio down to the sunny state of Florida. Her husband Ron's sitting at home with their daughter Tracy when the phone rings. Something's not right. Ron gets up, grabs his gun, tells Tracy he realizes who the writer is, and he's going to take care of it. Roughly 20 minutes later, his truck is found off the side of the road, smashed to pieces. According to the Pickaway County Sheriff's Office, he was driving with a blood alcohol content of .16, double the legal driving limit. His gun was found in the truck with him, and it had been discovered that it was fired. The bullet from the gun was never found. Sadly, Ron did not survive the crash. He never got to tell his story or explain the events of that night to anyone. Oddly enough, Ron's family continued to say that he wasn't an avid drinker and they don't think he could have drank that much to have a BAC that high. It's the 1980s.
Sail away, come to a place with that faraway taste, go Hawaiian.
6 years after Ron's death in 1977, things are still continuing in the fashion that they were before. In February, Mary's driving her bus to pick up kids and sees a disgusting sign claiming that her 13-year-old daughter is having a relationship with the superintendent. Obviously, Mary pulls the bus over to pull up the sign. When she gets closer to the sign, she notices that it's connected to a string of twine. She slowly follows the twine and sees that it's connected to a box. Mary picks up the box and takes it home to open it. The box was glued shut, so it took a lot of effort to get it open. To her surprise, she finds a gun. The other end of the twine had been tied around the trigger and rigged to shoot whenever Mary ripped the sign up in anger. Mary takes everything to the police and finds out that the gun's serial number had been scraped off. Almost. As soon as we got close to finding out the answer, we hit a brick wall. Until we didn't. The police quickly find out who the gun belonged to. Do you have any guesses? It was Paul Freshour, Mary's brother-in-law. Paul comes in for questioning and admits quickly that the gun's his, lets the police search his home, and gives them handwriting samples. When investigators ask him how the gun ended up in the box, he tells them he has no idea because the gun was stolen 2 weeks prior. One of Mary's co-workers had driven past the location of the box, close to the time when Mary drove by and found it. The bus driver saw a man outside in El Camino at the same spot. The man turned away from the driver, acting like he was urinating in order not to be seen. Paul Freshour goes on trial for attempted aggravated murder. Normally, Paul would have been at work and would have had a perfect alibi. On the day the trap was set, he had the day off at work. Paul explains he had the day off because he was having work done on his home, so he actually had an alternative alibi. Either way, Paul was found guilty on mostly circumstantial evidence. Even though he was found guilty, they couldn't connect him to the letters until someone ratted on him. Paul's wife, which if you remember is Ron's sister, tells police that she found a ripped up letter in the toilet and other letters across their home. None of these letters were physically given to the police, but they used her word to connect him to the letters. Paul continued to claim that he was innocent of attempted murder and writing the letters. The funny thing is, though, when Paul went to prison, the letters continued to come in the mail. In order to get to the bottom of the situation, Paul was placed in solitary confinement. Even then, the letters continued. They even continued to be postmarked from the same city outside of Circleville as they had been when Paul wasn't in prison. Paul himself got a letter from the sender that said, "Freshour. Now, when are you going to believe you weren't getting out of there? I told you 2 years ago, when we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all? No one wants you out. No one. The joke is on you. Ha ha. Tell no one of this letter. I saw the paper. Great news. Great. The sheriff loved it. Ha ha. Do you believe it now? Do you?" Paul spent 10.5 years in prison, continuing to claim innocence. And it seemed that police ignored the fact that letters were sent during the time he served his sentence. When he was released from prison in '94, the letters finally stopped. Paul tried to have his name cleared. He even contacted the FBI and gave them a report explaining why he was innocent. He also claimed that the sheriff had used him to cover up what really went on in Circleville. Paul Freshour believed that the attempted murder case was quickly handled and he was proven guilty with little evidence. He had a hunch that the sheriff at the time had placed the blame on him in order to get the case out of the way and make Circleville seem like a safe place. At the time, the sheriff was running for president of the National Sheriff's Association and knew that he couldn't be taken seriously if there were such a large case still unsolved in his jurisdiction. After all, Mary's coworker was never investigated as a suspect. Later down the road, this coworker had committed other crimes that would have been in line with the crazed persona of the person writing the letters. Something else to be noted was that Mary Gillispie did in fact have a relationship with the superintendent Gordon Massey, but it started after Ron's death. Another main theory surrounding the letters is that Paul's wife, Karen, actually wrote them. Paul and Karen were going through a nasty divorce, and Paul mostly won everything when the divorce happened. He even got custody of their kids. At one point in time, Karen was living on Mary Gillespie's property in another home. The only way for Karen to get everything back would have been to incriminate him. She was the only thing that tied Paul to the letters, and the only thing that tied him to the attempted murder other than his gun. But some people also speculate that the person that stole his gun could have been someone in his family or an accomplice of Karen's. Remember the man driving the El Camino who was seen at the site where the box was found? Supposedly, the man looked nothing like Paul Freshour. Allegedly, Karen knew someone who drove an El Camino during the time of the crime. The main theory is that the letters were started by someone else, probably Mary's coworker, and that Karen took over writing them whenever she realized she could use them to get her life back. There are a few things running against this theory. In the recently released 48-hour special covering the Circleville Letters, they explain that Paul's fingerprints were found on multiple letters. They also got a new analysis to compare Paul's handwriting to the letters once again, and the person doing the analysis said that they 100% believe that Paul is the person who wrote the letters. They even said that they would testify in court saying so, and that in their career there's no room for error because they're the difference between life and death for a person. Paul was never successful in clearing his name. His family continued to believe he was innocent, but a lot of people in the general public still thought he was the evil person behind the letters. On June 28, 2012, Paul passed away. He continued to claim his innocence until the day he passed. So, who do you think wrote the letters? Do you think the letter writer was the same person that placed the gun? Or do you think someone took advantage of a good moment? To this day, there's a large discussion around whether Paul was behind everything. Some people believe he was, and some believe he wasn't. Some people believe the letters have been copied by multiple copycats across the city. Either way, we'll never really know the truth to the story. Bye.